Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to our 30-minute tip of the month webinar. Say it before you leave. Exit tickets for better learning. We're excited to have you here today as we explore a simple but super powerful tool to enhance adult learning. Exit tickets, those quick notes your students provide at the end of the class, is what we're going to be discussing today. So during this session, we will discuss this tool as well as how they offer rich insights into what they have learned, what remains confusing, and the overall feeling about the lesson. But first, to ensure a smooth and productive webinar experience for everyone, please make sure to follow these guidelines. Please keep your microphone muted throughout the webinar. This will help maintain an organized and distraction-free environment. If you have any questions, please use the chat box to submit them. We will review all questions and address as many as possible as we can. The webinar will be recorded for future reference, as we normally do. Every time we meet, I send the recordings, the handouts, and the slides, along with any resources that we offer in the PD2Go newsletter. And if you're here, you know that we're going to be recording for future reference and for those who could not attend today's session. So what is it that we're going to be doing today in 30 minutes? So we're going to talk about exit tickets, the definition, the purpose of those, that strategy, if you like, the benefits, types of exit tickets, and strategies for effective use. And of course, we're going to end up with a quick question and answer round. But I want to hear from you first. Think about this. The class is done, it's finished. How can we end it effectively? So you really plan your class, you feel like your students were engaged and they were motivated to learn. So how do you end it effectively? Using exit tickets can bring closure to your live classes, actually. And the name exit ticket sometimes sounds like, oh, you need a ticket to exit the room, the classroom. But exit tickets are final quick check-ins with students before class ends. So I wanted to use the chat box and tell me, how do you normally conclude your live classes? Let's think about your live sessions. How is it that you do to end those classes? Use the chat box to share with us. Okay, it depends on the topic. I agree, Dr. Nino. That's why there are so many strategies, right? If it's a topical session, there's a way to end it if it's really practical. But any tips and any strategies that you have used and they're like, oh, it works. Okay, one thing they have learned written in the chat. Love it. Okay, you will hear about this in a minute. Perfect. It doesn't need to be that complicated. That's the thing. And when I was designing this 30-minute session, I really wanted to make it simple. Something that we can all do, something that doesn't take forever to plan. In language classes, students would be 100% role playing using this. Okay, perfect. Using the words, the vocab use, practice. Graphic organizers, post-its, 3, 2, 1. Love it. We're going to talk a little bit about that today, and we're going to continue talking about how to check for understanding next month. Professor Becker says summation, review of all material and questions and answers and added resources, reminding students to check the announcements, show notes for more resources mentioned in class. Thank you very, very, very much for your ideas, for sharing your ideas with us. So what are exit tickets? For this, I am going to be opening a Blackboard. And I wanted to use, if I ever found a Blackboard, I'm again in trouble here. Let me just, I don't seem to find it. Okay, it doesn't matter. So you can open your mic if you want because we are only 10 people. What are exit tickets? Have you ever used them? So when you think about it, if you haven't, then when you hear exit tickets, what do you think they are and what's the purpose? Anyone, you can open your mic, you can use the chat box. And I apologize, but I don't see my Blackboard, my whiteboard anymore. And I had it, I practiced. It's okay, we can continue and we can discuss what exit tickets are. So exit tickets are these brief, super quick assessments given to students at the end of a class or any instructional session. It doesn't need to be a full class. It can be a one-on-one discussion with their students, right? These quick formative assessments typically consist of a few questions or prompts that students respond to before they leave the classroom or session. Exit tickets are a super useful tool for teachers to gauge students' understanding, gather feedback, and guide future instruction. Exit tickets are pretty easy to use, and they can be used in many, many ways. We can use exit tickets one day as a formative assessment, and on another day to check in on students' feelings to learning. So it doesn't really need to be always about content itself. And as Professor Nino said, it also depends on the nature of your course or topic. Now, there are many purposes for exit tickets. There are many benefits of using exit tickets. It gives you the possibility to assess students' understanding. Exit tickets provide teachers with immediate feedback of what students have learned and understood from the lesson. This helps you identify areas where students are excelling or struggling. The instructors can quickly spot any misconceptions or gaps in knowledge that need to be addressed in subsequent lessons. And it, of course, promotes student reflection by asking students to reflect on what they have learned. Exit tickets encourage metacognition, which is very important, helping students to think about their own learning process and outcomes. Students can self-assess their understanding and identify areas where they need further clarification or study. It can also guide, inform your instructions. So the data that you get from exit tickets can actually help you plan the following lessons. So the information gathered from exit tickets can inform the planning of your future classes, allowing you to tailor instruction, your strategies to meet the needs of your students. Instructors can adjust their teaching strategies and materials based on the feedback received, ensuring that all students are they're fully supported. It also engages students. And why? Because, well, they're actively participating. Exit tickets require active participation from all students, ensuring that everyone is engaged and contributing to the learning process. Knowing that they will be asked to provide feedback at the end of the lesson can actually motivate students to pay attention and to engage more fully during the class. It also serves as a data collection tool. So exit tickets can be used to collect data over time, helping instructors to track students' progress and measure the effectiveness of their instructional methods. And it can serve also as an informal assessment. They serve as a quick and informal way to assess student learning without the pressure, anyhow, of formal testing. So any other benefit that you have experienced when using exit tickets?
Maybe I didn't notice. Maybe you mentioned this for the future or for the next class preparation, so we can figure out what the student needs more to focus.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mentioned that, and I think it's really important because it's not only about checking. Well, when you check for learning to really be happening in your class, you really need to take that information and do something with it. And one of those things that you can do is to tailor your strategies to take into consideration where your students are struggling to actually concentrate or base your next class on that. So thank you for that, Dr. Nina. Now there are also many benefits for adult learners because actually exit tickets, when I was doing research, I have used it, but I wanted just to bring like super quick, easy ideas for you to implement. And I was reading that actually started in K-12. So it's actually it's not only for primary school and high school. I'm saying that it started there, but it can be used and it can be tailored at any level, depending on the type of exit tickets that you use. So there are many benefits of exit tickets for our students here at Boscott University. First, students are highly likely to remember what they learned at the end of a class. Second only to what they learned at the beginning, right? So first, their minds are especially receptive during this time. When students recall what they have learned without using textbooks or notes, it really enhances long-term memory retention. And this is all based on research. And reflecting on their learning and the learning process helps solidify knowledge and improves their overall learning skills. Now, there are many types of exit tickets. I really just concentrated myself on around 10 ideas that you can implement. But one of the things that I wanted to mention right now is that you don't really need to use technology. So technology offers many ways to assess, create, and collect data. I get that. I love technology. However, we don't always need to use technology in the class. Sometimes we can gather data, that information that we need more quickly in a more meaningful way without technology. And this is something that I wanted to keep in mind when discussing exit tickets. Because one of the misconceptions is like, oh, I'm going to have to use Kahoot or I'm going to have to use Mentimeter. Well, you can. It's actually a really good tool, but you don't need to. That's my point. Okay, so I'm going to give you a few ideas for exit tickets. And if you have any other ideas, feel free to use the chat box to share with all of us. First of all, a really easy one, raising hands poll. Let me see if I can actually, oh yeah, I can use the laser. Okay, asking students to raise their hand is still the quickest way to gather information, right, without using technology. However, sometimes students might hesitate if they think they'll be the only ones raising their hands, which could affect anyhow the accuracy of the results. Despite this, it is a very efficient method for certain types of data collection. Then we have opinion corners. It's called opinion corners. And this method involves asking students for their opinions and placing opposite responses in different corners of the room or in different breakout rooms if you're using Zoom. Students then stand in the corner that matches their opinion, or they are placed, they go to the breakout room that matches their opinion, and somewhere in the middle if they have a mixed response. You also have class sketch notes. I really love this. At the end of the class, you can ask students to draw or doodle something they remember from the lesson, or they can use a graphic organizer. They can use the board, but they can also use Zoom whiteboard, or they can use a Google slide, and then they share with the rest of the students. This creates a kind of a visual summary of the lesson. And if many students draw the same thing or miss certain points, it's going to show you what they have learned well and what they might have missed. We can also implement as exit tickets the color-coded feedback notes. And actually, as Dr. Constance said, sticky notes are really good for this. So you can use sticky notes in different colors to represent different things, like something they understand well, something they are unsure about, or a message for the instructor for you. Like, okay, you have any questions that you can post them there. So students take their notes on the board, on the wall, if you are working on campus, or on their whiteboard on Zoom. And the different colors make it easy to quickly see and sort the responses. And again, you can use whiteboards on Zoom for this purpose. I see a comment in the chat box. Yeah, there are many. I actually had to really concentrate on just collecting the ones that I feel like, because we're busy, I know that they were not that difficult and they didn't take too much time to complete. But I have more ideas here. We also have quick reflection. I'm really for reflection all the time. So posing a question like, what was the most important thing you learned today? So it will help you assess immediately student understanding and key takeaways. Also, the 1-minute summary is really effective. So you ask students to summarize today's lesson in 1 minute. So it actually encourages synthesis of the lesson content, and that's a skill that students also need. Also, another one is at this point, you post a question like, what was the most confusing part of today's lesson? It is okay to talk about that as well, right? So that way, your students and you identify areas where they are struggling, and then that's going to help you design your lesson in a more effective way next time you meet. Or if it happens, if it's at the end of the lesson, but remember that we continue the conversation and we continue learning and teaching on GAP. You can take that information and take it to GAP to keep on discussing these situations. Then something very simple is rate their understanding. So you get a scale 1 to 5. You can use Zoom polls or surveys for this. And just ask a question. How well did you understand today's topic? And explain your rating. So not only, oh, a 3, but why? What happened? Why did you give them a 3? So that way you can actually gather student confidence and you can identify gaps. Again, what do you use exit tickets for? To check for what students understood well, what they're struggling, all those areas, gaps that need to be considered for next session. There's another idea for exit tickets that is called next steps. So say that you feel that the class went really well. You ask them from scale 1 to 5, how well did they understood today's topic? You got a 5, so they understood really well. So you can ask, what do you want to learn more about after today's lesson? So this is actually going to inform you about future lessons based on students' interests and needs. Any questions? Any other ideas of exit tickets?
I have a question. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, you mentioned earlier the purpose of exit ticket maybe help to collect the data, feedback, and the tracking. And now you mentioned different tools. So if we're talking about the time, how do you think, based in your experience, how many times should this take place when in the classroom? We need to do it every week, every meeting with the students. Some classes
Uh,
we meet it twice, some classes once. How we can manage the time?
really good idea. And I'm going to explain and again, please, the rest of you, use a chat box to give your advice and ideas. I would say with exit tickets, it's only once at the end of the lesson. I do that every time I'm teaching a course, I do that. That's my way to close a class. Of course, I'm not using the same strategy all the time. I use different types of exit tickets. Now, when it comes to checking for understanding checkpoints in your class, those are different things. Like you can actually exit tickets are part of checking for understanding strategies. We are going to base today's webinar on only the last part, what to do to close your class, your live session successfully, and help you collect data that you might need for future reference. Now, next month, we're going to be talking about checking for understanding, Dr. Nino. And there we're going to be talking about how many times and how to start the class and build in checkpoints to make sure that students are following, that students are understanding. So my answer to you is exit tickets once in a class. I would say do it every time you finish. It doesn't need to be really what I'm telling you right now. I'm just saying try to close your class in an engaging way, in a way that your students remember, reflect on what they learned, and it also gives you ideas on what to do for your next class. And now for checking for understanding needs to be done all the time. So we are going to be discussing that next month, hopefully.
Thank you so much.
Any other?
Just one sec. Yeah, it is just to make it clear. So you mentioned at the end of lesson, at the end of the class. This is a little bit confusing. Do we mean the end of the session, like each 8 weeks, or weekly
Okay, good
session,
question.
weekly class? Because
Yes,
this is confused sometimes.
live. Yes, you're absolutely right. Live sessions. I say
Live
sessions class.
session.
Mm.
Oh,
Okay. Every time you meet with your students for your live face-to-face class,
okay.
then you should use something to close your class. Not only questions and answers, like are there any questions? That's good, but then just make it more engaging, memorable. Anyhow, use reflection, use all those type of questions that I'm giving you right now, and there are way more online. But yes, sorry that I said session, and of course it can be the 8 weeks, 16 weeks. No, I meant live sessions, like classes,
Thank
live
you so
classes.
much. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I have more questions for you, actually. One of the best ways to check for, to close your live sessions and to check for understanding at the end of your class, and that's what exit tickets are for, is asking the right questions. So you can actually have a reflective prompt. So one thing, what is the one thing you learned today that was particularly impactful? How do you plan to apply this knowledge in your work or personal life? So you take learning from inside the classroom walls to real life. You can actually ask them to make an action plan. What specific actions will you take based on what you learned today? What resources or support will you need to implement these actions? So I really like this one because it actually gives instructors the idea, information of what students really need. Like, okay, I'm planning to do this, but I need more support on this and this. And then you will get that information to inform your future classes. There is a called question parking lot. And basically you end up the class by asking them, what questions do you still have after today's session? Because we know the time we have 3 hours with students, sometimes more, sometimes it's not enough. And there are questions that we cannot answer that moment. We can take that conversation, we can ask them the questions they have after that session, and then we can take that conversation on Gab. Or of the following, we start the following live session, live class with those answers. Or which topic would you like to explore in more detail? We can also discuss personal relevance when we use exit tickets. How does today's topic relate to your personal or professional experience? Can you give an example of how you might use this information in your life? So you see, it's basically exit tickets help you close your live class in a meaningful way, in a way that students take a few more minutes to think, reflect, and actually take learning from the class to the real life. Any questions? Any idea? Any other questions that you might use for exit tickets? Okay, if not, I just want to share with you a few tech tools, but I'm just going to mention them because again, I want us to understand that technology is there to help, but it's not everything. It's us, instructors, who need to make sure that our classes are engaging, that we're using the most effective teaching strategies. Technology can help, of course. You can create exit tickets on Kahoot, Paddle, and Zoom. Can we please mute? Sorry, let me just go ahead and mute. Okay, thank you. So you can use Kahoot, Padlet, Zoom. Zoom has lots of whiteboards that you can use as exit tickets. You can create your own, as I did, but now I don't see the whiteboard anymore. And upload it on your screen and use it as exit tickets. You can use Google Slides. You can use Google Docs. It could be anything, Mentimeter. The good thing about technology is that you create it once and you use it and reuse it and reuse it. But again, you don't need technology to design effective exit tickets. It's not hidden from you, Dr. Lippert. Dr. Lippert. I don't see mine. I don't know what happens. I see breakout rooms. I see annotations. I don't see, and I tried to make sure that I had it at hand. I really apologize for that. Yeah, I don't see it. Now I see it as a whiteboard. Thank you. I see it as I have to click on share. That's new. Okay. Well, those are the tech tools that you can use. There are way more out there. But again, technology is a tool. It's a tool that is going to help you engage your students, but it's not the ultimate tool. It's not the only tool. The best tool that we have is our knowledge, our passion for teaching, and our willingness to go the extra mile to help our students. Now, you have collected the data. What do you do with it? Well, actually, what we use exit tickets is, as I said, to collect data that helps us inform what students are learning, what they need help with, what they're struggling with, those gaps that we need to fill. So you actually integrating exit tickets is really, really easy. You have to actually have to do it seamlessly into your lessons. And that means try one at a time. You don't need to try everything. Just at the end of the class, that's simple, a simple one that you feel like, let me try this and see how it goes. What can happen is that if you hit the right button, the conversation will extend and you only have like 5 minutes to complete your lesson, your class. But that's a good thing anyhow. Also, what do you do with that data? Say that you design a really good exit ticket, effective exit ticket. If you don't do anything with the information that you got from students, then there's no point to doing anything, right? So it's important to collect the data and be able to tailor your instruction based on that feedback, on that information. And another thing that we need to keep in mind is that make sure that we encourage students to answer truthfully. Like, hey, there's no right and wrong answer here. Don't feel bad if you feel like I didn't understand anything. It is okay. I'm here to support you, and I'm asking because I want to continue supporting your journey. So, any questions?
No.
Any idea that you want to share with us?
I had the question earlier in my mind, how we can track, but already you answered using the technology. We have to use it. This is the way that we can collect. Otherwise, it will be hard to collect more information within the class. So the tools you mentioned are very good. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's important thing. Like what the purpose of using exit tickets is to collect rich data that informs your instructional practices. So what to do with it, it's up to you. And it might take a bit of time getting used to, okay, now I have this data, I'm going to sit down, but it's actually very powerful and useful because then you sit down to plan your following class, knowing what your students need. You know exactly what they need to be able to succeed in your course. Okay, so I shared a link on the chat box with a handout that we designed for this purpose. So if you want to have a look at the questions that I suggested for exit tickets, feel free to go to the Google Drive folder and download the handout from there.